I'm ChosenArchitect, and this is Project Architect 2. So, jumping back into some more Project Architect 2, I've got some big plans for today. I want to get ore processing set up, and I want to kind of take the processing that I had and convert it into mechanisms. Now, is this the best method for producing resources and producing and doubling our ore? Yes and no. It is going to be one of the faster ways to do it, but I think that Industrial Foregoing will do like 5 times, if I remember correctly, from the raw ore. Whereas in Mekanism, you get, even with the max setup, going all the way up through the chemical washer, the chemical dissolution chamber, and all of that fun stuff, you actually only get like a 3.3% increase, or it's like for one raw ore, you essentially will get 3.3 ingots worth out of that one raw ore, which is a lot. It is kind of a lot. It used to be 5, but of course the way that ores has changed, this has definitely changed it. Now, in my opinion, I think just going the 2-time route would be the best, and that saves you a lot because you have to have a dissolution chamber set up with sulfuric acid that produces dirty iron slurry. Then that needs to go through a chemical washer, chemical crystallizer, chemical injector, which requires hydrogen chloride, aka salt. Then it goes into a purification chamber, then oxygen, and so on and so forth, all the way down. But you can actually, this is just, by the way, for 3.3 times. You can go though for the 2 times, and then you start here with purification, oxygen, the crusher, the enrichment, and the energize. I feel like that's going to be a better option in my particular case where we're at. And now I try my best to explain the reasons why I'm doing things, and that was my explanation of that. Now, the reason I want to expand on my ores is because that is going to give us more raw ingots to kind of play around with, and I'm going to need a whole lot more moving forward, especially whenever we need tons of iron for making giant multi-blocks. And so right here is where things are going to take place. And so this stack isn't actually going to be too big. We're going to have an energized smelter, we're going to have an enrichment chamber, we're going to have a crusher, and then we're going to have a purification chamber. And this is actually where we're going to be piping in our raw material, for example, raw iron and so on and so forth. Now this setup is honestly going to be pretty straightforward. I'm going to start right here with iron, and there's going to be 9 individual setups for this. I'm going to start off with a frame drawer, and I have it set to match the gray concrete here and have a white concrete face. So on top of this, we should be able to place the energized smelter, and then we're going to have the enrichment chamber. And then on top of that, we're going to have a crusher, and then on top of that, the purification chamber. So the way that this is going to start is we're going to take iron ore. So let's do raw iron ore, and I will show you the steps. So we can also do the blocks. I think we're going to start with the blocks and send that into here. But if we go to the recipe for the purification chamber, we can see this is a direct dupe here, right? So we are going to send it oxygen, and it's going to take we could send it flint. Flint will also generate oxygen. But in this case, I'm just going to be sending it the just raw oxygen, which we're going to get from an electrolytic separator. And that will just simply double. It's pretty straightforward. It's going to double. And then it's going to take that doubled iron clump, and we're going to send that into a crusher. That is going to create dirty iron dust. We're going to then take that, and it's going to get turned and pulverized, technically, or enriched in an enrichment chamber, and turned into iron dust. And then the iron dust is simply going to be smelted inside of Mekanism's smelter, which will be pretty cool once we get it fully upgraded and everything. Of course, I could use iron furnaces. That would probably also be just as fast. Now, the idea behind all of this is it should be expandable up to 9 processes per operation. So it'll be able to do 9 things at once, and this should get pretty quick. And we could duplicate this setup. Like, it would be pretty straightforward to duplicate this. The way we're going to essentially have the config set up is the top is going to be the input and the bottom is going to be the output. And that's pretty straightforward for most of these machines. Now, in this particular machine, the back is actually going to be the extra slot. And that extra slot, by the way, is this yellow slot, which is going to be where we send our gas. Actually, I think on this case, we clear that because we're not going to send it an item. We're going to actually go underneath the gas tab. Let's make sure auto eject is on. We're going to be going to the gas tab because we should be sending this oxygen, which is going to be a gas. And by default, every side is set to input. So there's really nothing we have to configure. And for the crusher, straightforward, input, output, and make sure auto eject on. They're just going to send automatically to each other. And I find this to be super simple. And once we have this one stack done, this is going to carry over and copy to every single machine for all the other ores. Now, I do get this question all the time, Chosen, why do you not use compacting drawers for this? Well, it's going to be connected to our applied energistic system, and the weird part about hooking in compacting drawers is it's going to tell my AE system that, hey, I have, you know, let's say 500 blocks of iron in there, and then I also have 30 something thousand iron ingots. It's going to say I have both of those in stock. And unfortunately, that can kind of confuse the auto crafting system. And so I typically like to just have iron in instead of having it all broken down into its pieces and the AE system seeing that it has all of those individual values, even though technically it only has the certain amount of ingots per se. So yeah, if you had a craft that, for example, has a bunch of iron blocks that's needed and iron, you might actually not have everything needed to complete that craft, even though the system shows it. So in this case, I would just love to store large quantities of the actual ingots just directly into a frame drawer. Or you can go about using sophisticated storage. All of those are going to be very simple and work the same way. In this particular case, I just want to use functional storage because I can change the way the frame drawers look. Now, I did say I have 9 ores, but technically there are 10 ores, and originally I was only going to do 9 of them, and I was going to exclude zinc from create, but I changed my mind. We're actually going to utilize and just process everything. So why not? It does fit kind of nicely in this particular formation, so I have enough room for 10, and that's exactly what we're going to need. So I also have my electrolytic separator. We're going to use this here in a second, but for right now, I just simply need to copy my settings. So this is the one that I configured, so we can see this here, and I just need to just copy by shift right clicking and then just paste it onto all of these. Oh, you're just gonna love how just smooth that is. I love mods that have like copy paste cards. Like Thermal has that. There's also a way to do it with Industrial Foregoing now, I do believe. Oh, it's just a quality of life. Because, you know, sometimes I want my modded Minecraft to feel like Satisfactory, you know, where you just place this down and you don't spend so much time inside of a GUI. Because honestly, my least favorite part of Minecraft is, weirdly enough, the crafting part, as you may know. Well, I mean, crafting when it comes to manual crafting. I love the idea here with auto crafting. Like I love setting things like this up. I almost have this ready to go. I'm just going to use a logistical transporter for right now to send the items or blocks in my case over here. So I'm going to start with the left side and work my way over. This one's going to be set to iron blocks. Then we have copper, and I'm just going to follow the list that JEI has. I feel like that sometimes is the easiest way to organize my thoughts, is if it's organized in JEI in a certain way, I'm just going to follow that. It works out. And then I can go ahead and start putting these in pull mode. It's going to start pulling that out. And by the way, these are MK2s. I think these are going to be fast enough. Now, nothing's going to start yet because we still need to get oxygen produced, and that's a whole other process in itself, and it requires quite a bit of power. And that's the thing, this is actually going to cost a little bit of power, and I did go ahead and set up a nitro reactor back at the base. And so for now, I just have a new nitro reactor, which is running right here, by the way, which is producing roughly 500,000 RF per tick, give or take. Now, I think for this particular setup, I am going to utilize quantum entangle porters, and these are pretty interesting. Now, I could use the entangled mod, but the way I was thinking about this, if I did use the entangled mod, I wouldn't really have a good way of scaling up the production that goes into the back of these purification chambers. Whereas if I did use them, I could just simply stack the electrolytic separators, and yeah, I should be able to then expand. So I am going to use those, and I can do the math here pretty easily to get this started. I plan on having an electrolytic separator here and one over here, and later on we're going to have probably way more. So having the entangled blocks are going to be pretty nice. Or not the entangled blocks, but the Mekanism entangle porters. And we already have the autocraft for it, so might as well. So now let's do the math. So we are going to have, for example, let's see, we have 10 that we need for the base. And so we're going to need 10, 12. So we need 12. I do believe 12 of these in total. So I'll get that requested. And this should actually craft pretty fast now that we have like all of the base components like just ready to go. Like that is so much faster to craft on demand. Oh man, that's so good. Now, we're actually going to be producing oxygen and hydrogen here. So I'm going to have this block right here take the oxygen that gets produced, which we're going to also have to feed this water. I want it to take those two components. And you know what? I might actually move this over here. just to make this a little bit cleaner looking. Yeah, I think this is going to be good. So we'll have the electrolytic separator right here. I'm going to place the water on the left. So let's get, you know what? The best way to send this water would to just be piping it in. And to make it clean, I'm going to pipe it in from the bottom. I think that's also going to make it look very nice. We'll kind of use this down here, and we do have to use a pipe. So just any sort of pipe will work. There's also the logistical transporters that are really nice. Let's go ahead and grab, like, I don't know, this is fine. I'll end up upgrading these anyways. But for example, this right here. And then, of course, we have to use the sink. It's just so convenient having that sink. I don't know what it is about it. But we have to know which side is hydrogen and which side produces oxygen. So, you know what? Why not just give it a gate and just turn it on? I always kind of struggle with this, knowing which side is which. So we'll get that powered on, and it should start producing hydrogen. You can see hydrogen is the dark blue, and oxygen over here is going to be the sort of cyan color. And now, because these being gases, we're going to go over here, and already it's set to the left side being hydrogen and the right side being oxygen. So you know what? I'm going to go ahead and make 2 more entangle porters, so I have 2 more for the particular hydrogen that we're going to be filling up here. We'll use that later on. And so to use the entangle porter, let's go ahead and create a hydrogen channel, and this is going to allow us to select this, and it's also going to allow our entangle porter to store this as well. And so now you can see we have hydrogen building up in here that this is automatically sending. And on this side, I'm going to have oxygen. You know what? I might actually just make the back the oxygen. It's not the way it's defaulted, but you know what? Who cares what it's defaulted? I'm going to select the back, and I'm going to make the back the cyan output here. And I'm going to place my entangle porter back there. And this one is going to be called oxygen. So I'm going to set that value there, just like so. And we're not going to see oxygen, I think, storing just yet. We're going to have to go back into the configs, make sure that we were underneath gases. The back is set. Auto eject is on. We have to make sure this config is set up. So gases, and then the front needs to be set as an input. There we go. And so now we can see oxygen going. Now, for both of these, I'm going to make it set to dumping excess. And that's kind of necessary, so that way if one side fills up, it still produces oxygen, or if oxygen fills up, it still produces hydrogen, depending on our needs. And these, by the way, also work as really nice tanks. They do store quite a bit of this this gas and or fluids and or items. I think they hold like 64 items as well. So you can send all kinds of stuff, items, like just everything, power, all of that can be sent through an entangle porter. Now what I really need is a water entangle porter, and then I can just place that directly under here, because this is like a single block pipe for a mechanism setup, because these can auto output into the machines. You know what? I think I'm going to do that. I'm going to set a sink right here back at our base, and I'll just use another quantum entangle porter. Yeah. Let's get another one of those made up, and we'll place it right here, and we'll call this water. That seems perfectly logical to me. And what we can do is we can use this to just simply send water into the quantum entangle porter. Perfect. That way I can use a quantum entangle porter. I'm going to say that a lot. I'm going to use that to send the water to it. And that's going to make it even more compact. Perfect. Let's place that there. And then we select water, and we'll go ahead and set that. And let's see, is water filling up? We see it's going down. We just need to make sure that our fluids is accepting inputs. And then right here, we'll go into the fluids tab, and we'll make sure the top is output and set auto eject on, and that should now be filled with water. Now, like I said before, I do want 2 of these, and I should be able to copy the configuration from this directly onto this one. And same goes for all of the quantum entangle porters. And I think that's what makes the entangle porters so nice, is the fact that I can just copy the settings, and that includes everything. So I'll grab the entangle porter. There we go. There's this one. And I also need this one. And keep in mind, the direction you place it does matter. So notice I'm placing it facing this way and not from the back, because it does change the orientation of where the quote unquote front and back of the block actually is. And same with the left and right of the block. So that way I can continue to use the configuration tool here and get this to work. So actually, I placed this one on the opposite side. I might still have to do some configuration with it being swapped and mirrored like this. But there we go. And let's see. Make sure I copied that and then paste it over here. Just keep in mind, all of this is for ore automation. So I copied that, pasted. This should also set the value as well of what is actually being sent. So I don't have to select it anymore. This should just automatically go to water. We notice that there. Notice though, this is going to be wrong. So this is filling with hydrogen. That is correct. And the oxygen here is filling with oxygen. Okay, we're good. I was just making sure that these sides were correct inside of this as well. Now for each of these purification chambers, I'm going to place them in from the back, and this is going to be receiving oxygen. So we'll set it to oxygen and make sure that under the gases tab, the back is set to output, and make sure auto input is there. And that is going to start working. Now it is going to run out of power. We don't have this technically powered. The power it has is just from my inventory, but I do want to go ahead and make sure I have enough entangle porters ready to be placed in, and hopefully all of my configurations are just simply a copy and paste. Now I will put muffler upgrades in these machines here in a little bit, but I do want to get these powered. So there is an interesting way that I should be able to power that, and that's with modular routers. And I could just slap gates on all of these. I think that would also look pretty good, but I think right here would be a good spot and use for the power system that modular routers actually has. So to get this to work, you are going to need some energy upgrades, and this is going to give you an energy buffer, and we may need more than 16. I think the more that you have, the more and the higher the transfer rate is on this. And I'm going to try and get away with using energy distributor modules, and you can set up to 8 machines per distributor module. So I can go ahead and add 4 machines at a time, just like that. And this would be my first module basically installed. Now it does say it's out of range, and I don't know, I guess the base range is 8, which isn't very big. So I am going to have to actually add some range upgrades into this, but I'm not going to have to do that for all of them, just these basic few. And so 5 of these should get it done, since we do have 5 sets of 8 machines. And so yeah, it's just the outside ones that need the range upgrades. And so I'm going to put like 6 in this one and 6 in this one. And I think, yep, the range is now sorted out and we should be good. And I can put a gate, for example, like the Ender gate, which is, it does support a IO of 1 million RF per tick. And you'll see, oh boy, that the lasers have fired. And yes, it is now powering all of these machines, and they're very loud. So this is going to be a good time to make some muffler upgrades. Or if you don't feel like making those upgrades and you don't want to bother with that, you can just muffle all of these with your muffle screen here. So now I have the speed upgrades inside of here. So all of these are speed. I have muffled, they're on max. And right now, just to kind of put it in perspective, this is using 200 FE per tick, but it's about to go much higher. This goes up to like 40,000 per tick to produce max oxygen on this. Now we're also going to probably want to use, I believe, gas upgrades. So before I get this turned on, that's another thing that I definitely want to make for Mekanism is gas burning, because we are actually burning gas for this setup. So this would be like one of the few times and one of the few machines that actually utilize that gas burning setup. So we're going to need 10 of those. So might as well get that produced. And this is a pretty simple add. It's just going to get added right here. Oh, that's right. We need 8 per. So technically, I guess it's 6 per, right? So this only took 6 for that upgrade. No, 8. It is 8. Now it's kind of weird with these upgrades. Some upgrades and some machines, it's almost beneficial not to put the max amount of upgrades in them, because you actually don't get a bonus anymore after a certain point. And I think, like, for example, the water pumps for producing like deuterium and stuff, like those are a good example of that. But at some point you just don't even worry about it. Like, for example, this, I do want the max efficiency out of all this. So actually let's do, since we just did one set, we can go ahead and say we need 9 times 8. Bam. So that's going to produce 72 for us. Does the math. Gosh, I love that. So now that we have all of our gas, we can then put those in here. Definitely worth doing. And I've also gone ahead and made all of the machine upgrades. And this is where things are going to get a little bit crazy, because this is where it's going to start really consuming some power. So I'm going to put all of these in my inventory in the order that they go in. For example, we have the Elite and then we have the Ultimate. Okay, so basic tier installers. Let's get all of those placed in, and we just shift right click. And these are all now multi-slotted machines. We still have to go in here and configure them. I'm probably going to reconfigure them since it is going to, for example, require us to have that auto sort turned on. And now for the advanced tier, which honestly looks just like a color change, but it's so much more than that. And of course, elite tier. And last but not least, the ultimate tier. Oof. Now things are getting spicy. Now I know this particular setup may not be the most optimal, simply because the purifying factory is going to be producing more clumps than our crushing factory can actually hold and produce. But I think that's okay because these things are essentially just going to be producing unlimited materials. Now at this point, I'm just simply copying the settings after turning on the auto sort mode and just pasting that into all of the machines. So now with all of these up and running, we're actually using, I think, roughly 142,000 RF per tick for this ore processing setup. So yeah, it is quite a bit of power to get this up and running. And that's just assuming that these are going to constantly run for oxygen, and which it is working. And it does seem like our oxygen is staying full and it is actually filling. So these will stop running at such high speed. You can see right here, it's only running at like 19. It was running at 40,000 earlier. So it isn't going to run at max capacity all the time. So this setup would definitely be a little bit lower in that sort of amount, probably closer to the 80,000 since these are using just about 1.8 thousand RF per tick. And these are using about 800 RF per tick, but that's only whenever it actually initiates, because as you can see, this is kind of blocked up. This could definitely produce way more material. And we could have several more of these factories up and running. But like I said, this is going to be more than fine. We're already at 2,000 here, and this is just fully backed up. So speaking of backed up and speaking of amounts that things can hold, we actually need to get this hooked up to our storage. Now, I don't think I've ever used this before, but this is a framed storage controller, and I'm going to place the controller right here. Ooh, that actually looks super nice and clean for this setup. Oh, that is perfect. But I need to get that linked together. So let's get this hooked in. I shift right click here, and it does seem like we are going to need expansion cards in order for it to fully cover this area. So we should be able to expand this with just 2 of these copper ones, and that should get that range exactly what we need, because it moves it out 2 blocks, and it was actually sitting right here. So I needed 4 blocks worth of expansion. So perfect. So now that that's in, I can just start right clicking to add all of these drawers to the controller. And then we just need to get this hooked in, and then I'm also going to add some upgrades into these as well. Probably putting diamond upgrades in there, as netherite upgrades are a bit more expensive or just tricky to autocraft. You can do it with Applied Energistics, but it is a bit more tricky to do it with other mods as well. Now back here, what I have is I have another P2P that I did set up, and we can see that with the network tool. We can see back here, there's actually a P2P. I added another one to the controller, and that does give me access to this entire room, another set of 32 channels. And for this whole setup, we're only using 1 channel. It just really shows like how little you really have to worry about channels with Applied Energistics sometimes. For example, specifically with like Mekanism, it does make things a little bit easier. But I'm just going to attach a storage bus directly to the bottom here. And on this, I'm going to set the priority to 2. I'm going to set it higher than our other base priority, so that way this will be consumed first and also potentially stored into here first. And I'm also going to cover up my modular router. I'm going to set it to the white concrete, and there we go. So now we just have a white concrete block with a little red dot on it, which is kind of interesting looking. I might end up changing that. I'm still kind of debating if I'm going to, but this does look pretty good. And let's go ahead and get some upgrades. So let's do some diamond upgrades, right? I have 10 of these. So if I was to just do 10, this is going to at least get our first upgrade in here, and we can really start to see how much this expands. So this is going to do 24 times its base storage, which is 2,000. And it does say 2,000, but it's 2,048, I do believe. So by upgrading this, it already jumps with just 1 upgrade all the way up to 49,000, almost 50,000 ingots that can be stored in this one block. With just 2 diamond upgrades in here, we're already at 1.2 million of those ingots that can be stored, which is a lot. Let me just say. Now, you know what? For the camouflage, I think it might look a little bit better if I set this to a beacon. That could be kind of cool, right? Oh, that does look kind of nice. Like, and I kind of like the lasers like shooting out of it. It almost kind of adds to it. But you can remove those lasers if you really want to, I believe, with the muffler upgrade. Now, something that was really nice is it allows me to start to slowly but surely get this particular room cleaned up. And the same is going to happen with this, right? Because we have a power area that is going to be dedicated for power stuff, which is going to get kind of ridiculous as we continue through this series. And I hope you guys are looking forward to that. But, oh goodness. Things like this, for example, I don't want to just up and break it, but whenever I put these materials in, right, they should automatically go into those containers at the other area. Now, I do want to get some tape on these. Let's see, tape. We can grab packing tape, right? That's the best way to do this. And tape them up before breaking them, because you do not want to break things that have thousands upon thousands of items in them. That would be a bad idea. And these do not hold their contents like you would expect, for example, the functional storage to do. So without changing a config, that is. So there we go. So now we have these. And what I'm going to do is grab a pipe from the pipes mod, because that's one of the faster ways of doing this. And I'll just use advanced pipes, and I'm going to pipe this directly into the controller. So I'll just simply take this storage controller, which I think would work the best, place them in just like we had, just like so. And now I can start to feed this like this. Ignore that, even though you can send items up here. I'm not going to be doing that. I definitely don't want to do that. But I do want to send the items here. All right, so I'll just throw this in and I'll just kind of let it just do its thing. It should start emptying all of these. As you can see, it's pulling them out, extracting them out, and it's going to start filling these up. So now I have full ore processing ready to go for just about every ingot that we would want to have ore processing set up for. One we're going to really need is the uranium later on when we go to making fissile fuel and all kinds of other stuff. But for right now, this is going to continue to build up, and they can support up to 1 million ingots in there. That is so many, and we're definitely going to be utilizing a lot of that here in the future episodes. By the way, speaking of future episodes, and those of you who have watched to the end of this video, let's go ahead and do something kind of fancy. Now, I've been using these pants for a little bit now, but actually I want to switch over to crystallized versions of this. And I think this is going to be pretty interesting. So I'm actually going to use regular, let's go ahead and just do a fresh set. So we'll do a fresh set of diamond boots, a fresh set of pants, so I can enchant them myself. And I want to use this. So this is crystallized versions of this stuff from Cyclic. And this has some really high damage numbers. Check out this. This actually has 6 toughness and 10 armor, whereas the red matter only has 2 and 6. Now, I don't personally like the effects that you get when wearing the gravity greaves. And I also don't like the effect that you get when wearing the gym boots. So instead, I actually want to use these, but then this also is going to allow me to add some very special enchants. It looks like using those didn't really matter, did it? Okay, but I can put some enchants on here, which is nice because there's some enchants that I'm really going to want on here. And that is going to allow me to insta-mine blocks while flying. So now if I pop into my enchantment lab, we can go ahead and take these boots and put them in here, and we should be able to find that enchant. Now, you may be familiar with this enchant, Air Affinity. This removes the mining speed penalty when not on the ground, but our gem armor cannot be enchanted, the pieces that we have. So I can't put that on the head, but if I have these boots, there's actually one that does the same thing, but for your feet, called Stable Footing. And this will negate the mining speed penalty when flying, which is so nice because we can actually wear our pants and boots and kind of keep a different set going and still keep the benefits of our gem helmet and chest piece. And of course, later on, I'm going to want to enchant a lot more, but for right now, just having some stable footing, is going to feel all so nice. Because I've been dealing with not being able to use the full speed of my pick while flying, and that's been kind of a hassle, but this solves that problem. And there you go. Thanks for watching towards the end of the video. And of course, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And of course, if you did and learned something new, whether it was about Mekanism and how to process ores or any of the ways that we distributed things around, such as power, I don't know, click that subscribe button if you haven't already, and give this video, guys, a huge thumbs up. We're on our way to 1 million subscribers, and I can't do that without you. Of course, guys, comment down below what was your favorite part of today's video, and if you have any tips and tricks yourself, I would love to hear from you down there, and so would everyone else. And with that being said, it's now time to thank the amazing supporter of today's episode. That amazing thanks is going to go out to Outlast Blue. Thank you so much for choosing to support me over on the Discord by becoming a beautiful Discord premium member and supporting me in one of the best ways possible. You guys absolutely make this content possible, and I couldn't do it without you guys. Thank you so very much. And of course, with that, it's the end of today's episode. Hope you enjoyed. I look forward to seeing you, of course, in the next one. And as always, thanks for watching. Bye!